One said the real city. Baby, I yet draw no, you may be African country. If you say you won't say, and Quaffo, how am I? I'm for. Men are me catching out. Boba. Say, Maria, you me. Denmark crowd say Yakakra. Belgium, or mine to say Belgium. Ghana buying to me call Maya. Or Maya 7 million. A hawk of Bobbesia. Yeah, 30 million. Who's here, Jimmy? Or Maya, when we have 7 million, 8 million. We have my Belgium 14. Mammy Google, Obian for the phone. Or do you Google the population of Belgium, ma'am? Ma'am. Belgium population. I say the population of Belgium. Odoko.
Conclusion has come.
Say only 11.6 million. 11.69 million. Belgium are called money pa. Say, Omadru 11 million. For some 12 million. Yeah, 30 million. Now, in the 30. I call the 11. What's that? Yeah, Jimmy, Mama and Bessia. Shortly, there will be a civil unrest in this country. Say, I'm penny for an Trasian, Obao. What to come as away or bar? Maybe they'll be throwing who. Sister, hey, would that? Where are your bar? What do you jump police for him? The youth of this country must arise, and it must be now. The youth of this country, we must arise, and it must be now. Try answer. Because this is a very beautiful girl. The one fetcher minister, you know. Hear him? But you see, Okuta Kenyan flag.
Conclusion has come.
Making sure that you will not eat our future. You have to protect our future. Eh? Also, police in I am mobile. What did the police need to be here? Eh? Men are catch up. You were posted for baby will come ha. Omukwabesiamo and somebody. Police in back me. Na our my 7. Aban buy no man post no time no koto baby. Say damn shiano. Why kakraka na funu na adoa. Na be say police officer. Why say funu? Na be dey no betu mirika. Ye wie bia ma ne bia di. Eti why dudu. But one of the real youth this sir. Omukọ omachi. Wo ye be ma fa nsaka no. We a bema fa won saka no. Ghana meburu say na sese ya sha ase ye. Ensuo ni dia wo de bebo no so. Ba obesan ba. Den na obeye. Omanya yetimu sese ya me no kasai no. Eniema akoso no ehu chen Kenya. Yen yaji en COVID-19 levies no mame na pe obana na dabi mame Kenya MP obana na niefra no. Give me that video. Listen to the woman. Na aya sign language papa no monya no picture so then now on chem
I'm glad that I have. And I thank you for the opportunity to also, with my colleagues, oppose this motion. Mr. Speaker, I've heard a colleague use the book of Nehemiah to prosecute her support of this motion. But what exactly did Nehemiah say when he was urged to retreat? What was Nehemiah's decision when people were trying to distract him from his work? Mr. Speaker, Nehemiah said, I am doing a good work and I cannot come down. And that's what Gen Z are also saying to the executive and to members of parliament, that they are doing a good work, standing up, speaking for themselves and for their colleague, young men and women who are out in the streets, Mr. Speaker, and they cannot come down. And neither should we in this Senate. How can we go on a recess? Why are we going on a recess? We have just come from a 3-week recess period, Speaker. Why do we need 2 more weeks to reflect? This is a house of reflection, and we have to do it while we're sitting in these seats and when we're speaking in these microphones. That's what we're here to do. Parliament stands to represent its people. Parliament, Mr. Speaker, does not close to run away from its people. I want to urge and persuade those who have not spoken yet to also concur in opposing this motion because of respect for the young men and women who have lost lives, who are now muted because they cannot speak.
I want to cry.
Due to yesterday's horrifying scenes, we can't go home. Are we trying to say that renovations of windows and offices are more important than speaking for bloodshed and lives lost yesterday? We cannot, Mr. Speaker. And I, as a young person, as the first young person speaking to this motion, as a youth in this house, I am speaking for the youth who are outside of this house.
I want to cry.
We cannot go on a recess. It is wrong, and it would be completely insensitive to do so. Mr. Speaker, darkness fears democracy. I rarely wake up in the morning wishing for my eyesight to be restored, but what a sight to be able to behold. This last week had me aching with desire to see my fellow youth in the most spectacular display of patriotism, camaraderie, and putting up a first-rate masterclass on demanding that governments be held to account for the entire world to see. And yes, they have seen. But unity, Mr. Speaker, has been violently gunned down in the streets, not by men, but by monsters who have no concern for human life.
Captain Smart.
Although this government has demonstrated that lifeless Kenyan bodies are not to take precedence over their punitive finance bill, young Kenyans have looked their oppressor dead in the eye and shown them that when it comes down to the wire, there are only 2 times to be brave: when you feel like it and when you don't. My profound disappointment with the current government and its forceful assault on crowds of innocent youth, Speaker, by its nefarious police officers who have gone rogue on unarmed young citizens peacefully exercising their constitutional right towards an uncaring, a corrupt, and wasteful government in their eyes that has turned its back on them cannot be emphasized enough, Speaker. The brute force used against young, unarmed protesters reveals the operating system built into the fabric of today's government. And when they kill us, Speaker, they're killing themselves. The arrogance from some of these top government officials has been outrageously condescending to young people, disgusting and reminiscent of narcissistic abuse. You call us wankers and clueless children of plunderers. Then you say you're proud of us for making our voices heard peacefully. Then abduct defenseless children using state machinery and escalate a peaceful demonstration of young people with phones, twigs, and water bottles in their hands into barbaric scenes of bloodshed. Young people, Mr. Speaker, were not out to kill. In fact, I was here on this premises yesterday when everything set off. And whilst I was separated from my security guard, Mr. Speaker, I also saw another member of parliament from the National Assembly who is a wheelchair user, who voted yes to the finance bill, also having been separated from his team and his aides and bodyguard. He was stranded, Mr. Speaker, couldn't run, couldn't hide in his wheelchair. And you know what happened when those kids entered this premises? 3 young boys saw this member of parliament who voted yes for the finance bill, and instead of reprimanding him, instead of reading him their minds, giving them a piece of their minds, they actually carried this member of parliament in his wheelchair to the tunnel so that he can go and seek refuge across in Bunge Towers. And then the 3 boys ran back and joined their fellow comrades. That's what happened. These kids don't operate in mendacity, Mr. Speaker. They are moral youth who are just trying to get their voices heard. So this peddling of a message or narrative that these youth are evil, they are killers and criminals, they're not. That is completely misguided and untrue. Why don't these policemen punch in their own weight class, Mr. Speaker? That's my question. I've been asking myself, would they come into Parliament and try and abduct or take on Aledama or Lekina? Would they be able to have the balls to come and abduct and violate the safety of Samson Cherargei? They wouldn't, Speaker, because they know that all they're doing is showing a brute force, using their shields and using their armor and using their artillery, pouring it on young defenseless Kenyans. And you know, clinical psychologists will tell you that narcissists will first love bomb you, then they'll manipulate you.
Thank you.
Then they'll gaslight you into believing their lies.
What's I say? Nipa. What shed the socha?
Onua.
Oh, sorry. Hey, there be a catch up say ye boo mine, ye mbu political party. Well, baby, I didn't know. It is going and coming to happen here in this country called Ghana, and it will be very soon.
Of morning shows.
Confusing has come.
We, the youth, we will pour out on the streets of this country very soon, maybe before elections. Mark it somewhere. Why do you not say? Yes, bro. Why do you not say yes, bro? Yes, bro. Wapa, mamembo pi. Neshe mebuna. Bebe fi enim hasisia. Opa jime chinje. Na me kasa womra. Once I maybe catch us a member whistle. You think I've forgotten? I haven't forgotten. Sadi ebu mine. Pacho say ni ebu on mine ana. Hey, earth rod. Peter, earth rod. I will sit down we are. Earth rod na yedi earth. You say earth. Yedi. Just about 3 weeks ago. Now 570 Ghana cedis. And now, Yebusaya, 1,420 Ghana.